The United States, home to liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the most mass shootings in the world. After extensive research, it is clear that tighter regulations are needed in order to reduce gun-related violence in our country. We experience extremely high death counts due to easily accessible firearms. While some argue gun control is unconstitutional because it violates the Second Amendment, there are gun regulations that in fact do not infringe on U.S. citizens' rights. Our country's statistics are immense compared to other countries around the world. Their actions and policies show that tighter gun regulations will indeed reduce violence. Since the start of 2018, there have been 63 mass shootings, with more than 1,800 people killed by guns this year alone. It is clear that gun violence and deaths are increasing because of the loose regulations and accessibility. Gun possession significantly increases your risk of being killed, and the number of firearms available to American civilians is estimated around 650 million. For example, states with higher levels of gun ownership experience higher rates of firearm fatalities. Overall, we lose more than 36,000 Americans to gun violence every year in this country. That's an average of 99 gun deaths a day. These high numbers of deaths and gun possession in the United States shows the relationship of gun violence in our country. With tighter regulations and a more thorough process to get a gun, it is possible to limit the amounts of deaths by gun. One way to do this is to create a more thorough process and ban certain modifications. The Second Amendment states a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. While many believe that gun regulations infringe on rights, they often do not define infringe correctly. The true definition is to actively break the terms of a law. Infringing on the Second Amendment would be to ban firearms altogether. However, placing regulations on guns does not take away the people's rights to bear arms. Such regulations, though help to prevent death by gun, include background checks, banning bump stocks, and banning high-capacity magazines. Background checks are the single most effective way to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people and save lives. Through thorough background checks of personality, habits, and disorders, guns would not be given to citizens who are a threat to other people. Many gun sales are bought through private sales, which do not require background checks and are legal in 30 states. For example, the shooter at Stoneman Douglas High had a long history of red flags that didn't show up in the national database, but were well known to local police. A law that would have required a gun buyer to apply for and get a permit at the discretion of law enforcement could have empowered authorities to deny the shooter access to an AR-15. Such circumstances give dangerous people a free pass to arm themselves. We need the enactment of a federal law requiring background checks on all gun sales. Those checks should be strengthened to block all those with a history of violence or red flags. Similar to strengthening background checks, a ban on bump stocks is a necessary change needed. Bump stocks give people the ability to turn their semi-automatic gun into fully automatic guns. This ability makes guns more dangerous and shootings deadlier. Like bump stocks, high-capacity magazines give civilians a more devastating gun. For example, Jared Lee Luffner in Tucson, Arizona, was able to fire 31 bullets in 15 seconds because he suppressed his Glock 19 handgun with a high-capacity magazine. With easy access to fully automatic guns or high-capacity magazines, shootings become massacres. Comparing our gun problem to other countries shows the wrongdoing or lack of action from our nation. The rate of murder or manslaughter by firearm in the United States is the highest in the developed world. We are a culture that sees more of its own people killed by fellow citizens than any other high-income nation. An astounding fact to put this into perspective is that the United States makes up less than 5% of the world's population, yet we have 31% of global mass shooters. Our lack of gun control causes us to be one of the leading nations in gun violence. It needs to come to an end. In comparison, Australia has a ban on semi-automatic firearms, which has significantly reduced gun deaths in their country. Likewise, in the UK, you need to spend hours filling in paperwork and proving to the police that you are not a danger to society. Such thorough processes limit the number of citizens that possess guns, which reduces the gun violence. Overall, the gun violence in the United States is exceeding that of any other developed country in the world. With tighter regulations, we can reduce such violence and save the lives of our citizens. Organizations such as the NRA argue that the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. These ideas promote guns, thus putting more guns into people's hands. This ever-growing possession only adds to the violence here in the U.S. In reality, the best research shows what common sense tells us. More guns means more crime and more death. Guns certainly do not cause crime, but the fact that they are so easily available, especially to those who may not be mentally stable, does. Easily accessible guns and loose regulation shows that what we are doing now is not working. Tighter regulations in other countries has proven to be effective. Such regulations need to be implemented in the United States to reduce gun violence. Thank you.
Well done.